You were talking about outsourcing.
Yes.
Now, there's a question that someone tweeted a question, wanted to know if the new Chief of Defense Intelligence, if the Office of the Chief of Defense Intelligence is a new office that's being created. Is that to help in the issue of gathering information, drawing from the outside inwards? Or has it always been there?
Oh, it's always been there. The Chief of Defense Intelligence Office has always been there. But like...
Which is different from the DMI?
Directorate of Military Intelligence, consider it the intelligence arm of the Army. The Defense Ministry also has its own intelligence arm.
Now tell us about how this different areas are supposed to work. You know, people on the outside always had the impression that the Defense
Intelligence Agency.
Yeah, well, the Defense Headquarters, you know, coordinated the three other arms of, you know, the military. Is that how it works in reality?
The three services come under the Defense Ministry. The Defense Ministry is like, call it the parent body of the three armed forces, okay? Now, each armed force has its intelligence peculiarities, like air intelligence, army intelligence, and naval intelligence, okay? They gather different types of information, and they process it and glean off intelligence, okay? And having gleaned off this intelligence, they use them. At the apex is the Defense Intelligence Agency, which is now like a hybrid of the three. So if today we had issues with our defense policy and they had to do some strategizing, they're going to do their strategizing and come out, say, with a defense policy thrust. That defense policy thrust is going to actually be taken on by the Ministry of Defense and watered down by the service chiefs. So if I could relate with civilians properly, if Nigeria today, or let me give you an example we all know so recently, when the Commander-in-Chief read his inaugural speech, he made a position, he took a standing concerning insurgency. He didn't say anything about the service chiefs other than the movement of the command center, but his positioning, his statement on insurgency is a warning order to all service chiefs to gird up. There's work to be done. So if I were a sitting service chief, just listening to what my boss has said, I know what to go and start doing. I'll go and start preparing.
You don't need to wait for
another direct command. It's called anticipation now. You know, the CEO of this organization could come out and say, look, before the end of 2015, we are going to do maybe 1,000 editions of a particular program. I don't think the producer of the program needs to have it written down for him. He already starts anticipating. The logisticians, the crew technicians, that's how it works. So,
just curious though, when the president did say that, do you think that the service chiefs would have thought it was their concern? Because that's where the argument as to whether or not this was timely came around. Some people will say it was long expected, especially after the inauguration, but it's only coming now. Do you think that they would have thought then that he was referring to them, or he was talking about them directly?
I tell you something, it will be unusual not to. You see, most of the time when you work and you have to drive the successes of a head, you have to apply yourself, you know, to supporting what he wants to do. Let me give you an example of what I'm trying to say. When he made that statement and came on board, naturally, any security or intelligence chieftain should also expect the insurgents to respond by giving him a welcome handshake. And you saw it in the spate of bombings. You know, it's like welcome. So if today you decided to take a decision, as your security chieftains, we are going to be looking at the security aspect, the pluses and the minuses. Take, for example, if today we decided to ban Okada in Lagos, my problem will be that chunk of youth you are taking off, where will they come up on my radar? Isn't it? So you are going to do a lot of inverse and converse thinking. That's why I said it was a bit, it wasn't impressive when these bombs started going off. If you took Okada riders off Lagos, the least you can expect is protests. So what is your anti-protest policeman? Where have you gathered a squad? Do you have one standing by, or are you going to wait for them to start before you respond? Could you bring in what we call pressure group leaders, interest group leaders, youth leaders, religious leaders, to start doing something about this impending ban? Could you also get a leeway and say, okay, you can't do Okada today, but this is what we think you can do that is better? That's the way the intelligence community works. We actually become what you call the devil's advocate to look at things. So basically the way it has gone, a lot is on the table for the new service chiefs. And that makes it very interesting because there's so much room for improvement. They have a backlog of lessons learned to draw from. So they're not really coming up empty-handed.
What are the targets we're setting for them?
The targets we're setting for them for now is, one, troops. We're going to be seeing a revitalization of troops' morale. Let's not pretend about it. You don't have 579 of your colleagues in the intensive care unit and their lives are hanging by the balance, and you will go to the battlefield fully invigorated. Okay? That's one. Two, we have to look at the welfare and the operations within that sector. Okay? Having done that, the service chiefs have to actually reach out to other specialist genres. Okay? They have to break the ice. We have to drop the walls. We have to bring as many heads in and minds as possible, because terrorism is not all about guns and bullets. Everything you do with a gun and bullet starts in the mind. And if you can think it out properly, then the chances are higher you can execute it properly. We have to bring people in the know in. And when they speak English, as we say in the army in those days, if you listen well, you're going to glean a lot from that English they are speaking. I will give you an example. A colleague of mine who works with the Desert Research Institute in the United States, you know, he shared something with me and told me, do you know you can actually dominate the few available routes for movement in a desert? Everywhere is sand, so if you don't know your way around, the insurgents entice you into the sandy area. Your car will sink the way it will if you go to Bar Beach. Yeah. And if it sinks, they take it. So probably that's how they were able to get our own vehicles and equipment. But there are some dedicated routes where the ground is harder across these desert areas. And once you can identify them and hold them, then you're going to take out 80% of their capacity to move. So strategy is going to be all-inclusive. All-inclusive in the sense that it's not going to be purely military, just like I gave you the example of Dr. Fatima Achilu. Okay? It's not going to be entirely military, it's not going to be entirely civil, it's going to be a cocktail of so many efforts. The immigration guy will be aligning to the insurgency threat. The customs guy will be aligning to the insurgency threats. There is also customs intelligence unit. There is immigration, they have their own intelligence units.
So all the security apparatus must come together.
It's one big party, and nobody is irrelevant. As many as come are invited.
Finally, what role would the citizens, the civilians as you call them, what role would they need to play in helping the new service chiefs tackle insurgency once and for all?
Yes, people say cooperation, understanding, awareness. I have never been what do you call, an advocate of security awareness. Security awareness comes naturally when there is security threat awareness. And the security threat awareness levels we are looking at today should begin to consider going out there and speaking the language the people identify with. You don't go to the Chiboks and speak about threat awareness in English. Can we begin to speak Chibok language to them? Can we go to the Baburs and speak Babur? Can we go in and speak Kanuri? Okay? And by the time you identify with the mother tongue, you know what I mean. We're Nigerians. If I come to your village to seek a bride and I learnt a few greetings in your tongue, acceptance, isn't it? So let's begin to see our intelligence communities start looking for all those students who went into university and did linguistics. And they can sit down and actually turn your English speech into Babur Kanui, you know, and somebody stands among people and speaks it and reads it out. You're going to see us take back our own. I want to appeal to people in my village in my tongue. Our culture has nothing to do with terrorism, so what are our children doing there? Right. And if you speak that in Yoruba language, the average Yoruba boy is virtually going to come home quicker.
All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Captain Umar Aliyu, security consultant. We've been talking about the NIU, service chiefs and security. Thank you for speaking with us.
You're welcome.
Sunrise, we'll be back in a moment to look at some other matters. Don't go away.